Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of What's the Word, an electrical industry podcast. I'm Jason Cox, and beside me is my partner, Zach Hartle.
Hey everyone, what's going on? You know what's on my mind, Jason? And I mean, it's very fitting because of what our episode is about today, but copper recycling.
Copper recycling? What about aluminum recycling?
Well, I guess that too. A little bit of everything. So today we have Brandon Cooper, local to Calgary here with Bare Wire Recycling. And he's going to chat with us a little bit about wire recycling. What do we have coming up in this episode, Jay?
Well, we're going to talk about just the whole idea of ethical recycling and the importance of having the recycler as part of your construction site jobs.
Yeah, we might even learn a little bit about how to prevent copper theft and even a little tidbit of information on catalytic converters, which I don't think anybody really knows what they are. So that's going to be good.
All right, so sit back and we'll welcome Brandon Cooper to the episode.
All right, welcome to the show, Brandon. How's it going today?
Great, thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We're glad to have you here. I'm glad we were able to finally get this going. You're actually our first guest, I think, that we polled the audience on our Instagram, and your name came up multiple times as the wire recycler to talk to in Calgary. So thanks for coming on.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Brandon, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been in this this recycling industry?
My background, I've been in the recycling industry for about 15 years. Previous, I did a lot of waste management recycling, moving into the metal recycling in about the last 12 years.
Okay, so for me, what is waste recycling?
So diverting wood, plastics, other materials from landfill. That's been historic, my background there.
Okay, cool. And so over the last, well, it says here that, when we did our research, you've been involved in the metal recycling industry now for quite some time. Has there been some big changes over the last few decades?
The biggest change in the last few decades is the metal reporting to the police. The police became more involved about 6 years ago in once copper started rising above $3 a pound. That's about the biggest change, and then the daily reporting that has to be done. That's about other than that. Other than that, not much has changed.
And that's definitely something that we wanted to talk about as we're looking through there. So with the change now in copper becoming more expensive, the legislation has changed so that you guys do have to report things, and that's probably been done due to just theft and crime, I would think.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, yes, scrap prices changing all the time. How much can you tell us a little bit about just what my scrap copper or my scrap conductors are worth right now?
Your clean copper right now is running just a little bit above $4 a pound. Your insulated wires vary based on the recovery of the wire, so to speak. Anywhere from 90 cents to $2.60 a pound with the plastic still on it.
So how volatile are those prices? I know that was a big thing over the last couple of years, as those prices are just up and down and up and down. Has it always been like that? I've only heard about it the last couple of years.
Yeah, now they change hourly. Actually, they could change every couple minutes, but the scrap yards generally hold or pre-sell the material ahead of time at a set price. So our prices don't change. Our risk is if it drops or goes up dramatically and we've locked in a price, then we're on the hook. But for the most part, most scrap yards change every couple days prices.
Okay, fair enough. So let's say just for the process of scraps, I mean, I've gone a few times and dropped off a couple Rubbermaid totes, nothing big, but when I drop it off, let's say it's insulated wire, do you guys process it there on site, or is it basically sold as is to somewhere that repurposes it?
Most of the wires we process on site. We have machines that actually separate the copper from the plastic.
Very cool.
and it shreds it down, and then it goes to the end user that way.
How long is it from the back of my truck until it's out your door to an end user somewhere?
Depending on the material, about 2 weeks.
Oh, great.
And is that material being shipped somewhere locally, or does it go back overseas?
A lot of your copper materials goes to China or India. Your aluminum materials goes down to the States. So it really depends on what exactly we're dealing with and what the commodity is at that moment, what the mill is paying for it at that moment.
Interesting. With your business, like on a big job site, you're dropping off a bin, they're filling it, or is the customer bringing the material to you?
We do both. So we have 3 ways to do it. They can bring it into our facility here in the south. We have the roll-off bin dumpsters, like I mentioned earlier, where they fill it up with miscellaneous wires. Then we also have a cube van, so to speak, with a scale in it, where we'll go to the job site, weigh it there, and sort it and bring it back to our warehouse. And they usually get turned around in about 48 hours.
So we talked about this, the new reporting that comes in because of, copper theft being a big issue. So when it comes to that reporting, can you tell us a little bit more about what you guys are required to report?
Yeah. So when anyone brings in material, it doesn't matter whether they're electrician or a residential customer with their Christmas lights, they have to report. We require one piece of government ID, so driver's license, passport, anything that's issued by the government stating who they are. A second piece of ID with their name on it, identification, would be Alberta Healthcare or a credit card, something with their name on it. And the other ones that we do is we are required to report the year, make, model, and color of the vehicle that has brought the material into our facility. So every pound of non-ferrous materials gets reported to the police every single day from every yard in Alberta.
Perfect. So that's your copper and aluminum would be the most common non-ferrous?
Yeah, your copper, aluminum, brass, lead,
really?
stainless. Every piece of metal that's non-magnetic, so to speak, has to be reported every day.
Is there big theft or issues with like the brass and the stainless and stuff like that too?
All of it, yeah. Automotive batteries to brass fittings to stainless faucets. There's issues every day. It has slowed down a lot in Calgary specifically and Edmonton since this reporting has happened. If they're able to catch up to the thieves faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In our industry, we mostly hear about the copper, right? Like
that's right. The copper is a big one. Yeah. There's been, although we get reports from the police every week, basically on what they're looking for or what happened. Keep an eye open for this. And I haven't seen much in the last 3 or 4 months.
That's good. I mean, I'm sure would put yourself into the category of a pretty reputable scrap dealer. Is there shadier back alley operations? You don't have to tell us where they are, but is it super regulated? Like every dealer has to do the same reporting, or is it voluntary?
Every dealer has to do the same reporting. There are a few facilities that do not do reporting. If the facilities don't do reporting and they get caught, the fines can be upwards of $50,000 to $100,000. So the employee gets fined and the business will get fined. But the problem is the regulation states that it's a licensed business with the city of Calgary or Edmonton that have to do this, but there are a ton of backyard dealers that don't report.
One of the things that's been making the news for a while is the recycling of catalytic converters. Is that part of the recycling products that you guys take care of at your company?
About a year ago, we were taking those in. Since all this got out of control, we have stopped buying them. So we do no longer deal with catalytic converters. My beliefs and my company beliefs is that majority of the converters that are coming in are very questionable. So there should be no real demand, or not real demand, so to speak, but volume of the converters that are coming in. there are, the scrap car guys who are taking them off legally and properly, but there's 8 or 10 yards in the city, and they're all buying 1,000 converters a day. That seems a little fishy to me.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a car guy. What is it in a catalytic converter that is valuable?
There is palladium in there. There's platinum in there. I'm not 100% sure. I believe it's like titanium in there. These metals are in there are extremely valuable. One converter in scrap can be $5,000, right?
Oh.
If you find the right one, they can be anywhere from $5 to $5,000. So it really depends on what year, make, model car you're dealing with. But that's why they keep hitting the same vehicles over and over and over, because they know which ones are out there and which ones are quick buck, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a cousin of mine who, like, 20-year-old Hyundai something or other, and it got stolen. It was like $3,500 to get a new one installed.
Yeah.
So I was like, that just seems, to me, knowing nothing, crazy for a chunk of metal that goes in the middle of your exhaust.
And that converter was probably $1,000 in scrap.
Insane. Yeah.
The older the car, the more metals was put into it. So like you find vehicles from the 80s or the 90s, those things are a lot more valuable than they are the more modern ones.
Okay. So I guess would your recommendation be there's all these new serial number engraving services around town that I've seen up now? Is that a worthwhile investment? Is that something, I guess all reputable dealers would be looking for that engraving, but the backyard places still aren't gonna, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, anybody who is taking them, they're not taking them to the reputable dealers. So if we could eliminate that scenario, then yes, those serial numbers will help. But until we can stop that from happening, see, there's a lot of laws put in place for the dealers to report and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of in place to stop people from buying these things who aren't licensed.
I guess the thing that I'm looking at, and from my perspective in industry, is like I've been on sites where we had our materials on site stolen, and I would certainly not want the recycler that I take my recycling to be the same recycler that is taking the stolen property. Is there some sort of, so when we look at a reputable, it's a hard word for me to say, company, is there some sort of association that you guys fall under in the province or in the country?
There is a association. It's called CARI. We used to be a member of it. Unfortunately, they allow anybody to join if they want to pay for it. So for us, it wasn't worth it for us to continue with the program. They do have a lot of education and stuff that they help with the police force and the public, but anybody who's got money who wants to join, they can join.
And so, like you were saying earlier, you're receiving reports on a frequent basis from law enforcement if something's happened. Have you been involved in the past with this gold mine of scrap copper coming in that aligned with a report that you'd had?
The odd time, yeah, we do see some. There was one that came out last week. About 10 spools of wire went missing off a job site. So they sent out an alert saying, looking for this type of material on these spools, this kind of color. What just so happened there on the next Friday, a bunch of those spools had come in. So what happened was that the police got alerted immediately, and they were here within about a minute and a half. And I had caught the culprits doing it. Now, they didn't get all the spools back, but what they do is they take, if 10 go missing, they'll take 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So they're not on their radar. Which
clearly that doesn't help, but you guys are basically like a vigilante now in the industry. And
the problem with that we faced is when we've done that in the past, our business has suffered, not financially, but when they get caught here, they come back with retribution to the businesses.
Yeah, I guess that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So there's no real protection for the smaller yards to help it, to to do it. Like there's a couple other ones that are smaller than us, and when they step forward to help, they get threatened, they get vandalized, they get all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's terrible. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, like ultimately, yeah, I want to know that the recycler that I'm dealing with is doing their best to make sure that they're buying their legitimate products.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's ways to identify it too. Like you see someone come in a small beat up car. Why do they have 10 brand new spools of wire in their trunk? You know, it's a red flag that goes off. Unfortunately, some cases it's impossible to tell, and you can't really ask, where did you get this from? Because it really makes it difficult to operate in business. But when those red flags come up, all of our staff here are trained to go, no, 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 we won't be buying this.
Do you guys ever have people show up not in a vehicle but walking or riding a bicycle in to recycle?
We do not anymore. No, about 2 years ago, we stopped allowing bicycles. But in my opinion, the problem is not the bicycles. It's the people in the beat up pickup trucks, in the beat up cars. Those are the ones that are the problems, the theft. The problem we have with the bicycles is they leave the mess behind. Those are the guys that are dumpster diving, grabbing bits of scrap, grab that. Yes, there's always the bad apple in the bunch, but majority of them I've found do not cause the problems. It's the guys who are breaking down your fence with their truck or their car and loading it up and then bringing it to the recyclers.
And so, like, how are you marketing yourself to electrical contractors and other construction people? Why am I choosing to go with bare wire versus someone else?
Well, 80% of our clientele are electricians or plumbers or trades. One of the biggest ways we market to this industry is we offer like a trades bonus. So if they come in and they've got your trade certificate, they get a bonus on their material. So we're wanting premium customers, legitimate customers versus the backyard scrappers, I'll call them for the best term, right? So we promote ourselves to them specifically as catering to that industry.
Okay, cool. So, like, if I'm like Zach and I'm bringing in my Rubbermaid tote full of scrap ends from a panel tie-in, I should also show you my journeyman certificate to get a little bit of a bonus there.
That's exactly right. So you bring that in, you'll get 5 to 10 cents a pound bonus on all your material because of your trade. The bare wire started when it initially started. I focused on the trades. I only like to have the legitimate, real customers that have this stuff legitimately, so to speak, right? So I've never focused or marketed towards the general public, so to speak. We've joined associations in the past. We've promoted associations in the past. We have good communication with a lot of electricians in the city.
Fantastic. So if I'm starting a new big job as an electrical contractor, and maybe it's my first time I need bins on site or something for recycling, will you guys kind of do like a quick assessment of my needs and how much scrap I have and tell me what's going to be the most efficient way and cost effective way to get my scrap to you and get that payout to me?
Oh, yes, absolutely. A simple phone call or a visit down to the office will help come up with any solution to get the stuff off. The trick that electricians and in your industry has to face is you don't want to leave the stuff on your site because it's not going to be there in the morning. So the faster you can get it off your site, the less chance of having your theft.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely one of my other questions is like, what advice do you have to me to prevent that theft? And I guess, get it off the site it's tough to lock up that kind of stuff too much.
It is, but some of our customers, what they've done is they don't identify their bin that they're holding it in as scrap copper. Like one of the biggest mistakes the guys do on job site is they'll have a big bin and say scrap copper only. Mm-hmm. We've issued like signs that say garbage, and they put it on the tote or they put it in the bin or they put it on their sea can, and generally speaking, they don't go in there. Mm-hmm. So identifying yourself on a job site as an electrician, I understand it's good for business, but it makes them a target.
Mm-hmm. Just walking that fine line, I guess.
Yeah, like some of our bins, like that's why our big dumpsters don't say scrap copper recycling on it. They'll say waste dumpster. So those waste bins are holding, so to speak, the material that they need to get off the site, because if they leave it there, it's gone by Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I just find this really fascinating and of course disappointing. Some of the things we're talking about, the retaliation and just the steps we have to go through. But I'm going to just jump back to the conductor recycling. So you guys can recycle any conductor that I've pulled or ripped out of a demo. Is that correct?
Yes, anything from Christmas lights to data cable to high end thick gauge wire.
So yeah, so if I bring in a roll of coax or pieces of coax, you're going to be able to break that thing down and separate the copper conductor from the sheath, the
Yes,
shielding.
absolutely. Anything that has copper recovery above, 2 or 3%, we can get the copper out of there.
How would you get the copper like out of a coax or a Cat6 cable? It just seems like I'm just imagining someone there like stripping each of those 24 gauge wires, but I'm sure it's not that.
No, so we have a couple machines. Basically, it goes into a pre-shredder, so it chops it up down to 1 inch size, and then it goes up a conveyor into a granulator, and it's almost like a gold sluice box. Have you ever seen those where it shakes it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's an air sluice box, so it's shaking it really fast with air blowing up on the bottom of it. So what it does is it lifts the plastic up, plastic goes back, and the copper goes forward.
Okay. So I mean, so now you can now. I remember being an apprentice back in the day, and I mean, we had leftover material and we could strip it if we wanted, or like it was like basically it was garbage. So they said if you want it, you can take it. So I've stripped a little bit of bigger conductor in the past, but now it's why bother? Or I mean, depends what how much is your time worth, I guess, is the thing. One of the things we used to do is we used to burn the conductor to get rid of the insulation. And then I was also told in the past that recyclers do not want to accept conductors that are burned. So a burned conductor, it's hard for you can't then you got a problem, right? So we're not going to accept that.
Yeah, a lot of them don't accept it because goes back to the thieves generally do that. So that was a way of getting them to stop. So when the yard stopped purchasing that stuff, the thieves were not burning it. Not only is it extremely hazardous for the person burning it and the environment, but it's a red flag for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the environment seems to be something that we're circling around on again. Obviously, we're recycling for the environment and making these changes, right? I mean, burning plastic isn't good for anyone, right?
Absolutely.
When all this copper's going in for processing with the machine that I forget the name of that shakes it, is it like we bring it in separate bins? This is our number 8 copper and this is our data cable. Does it all go in together, or is it kind of separate machines, and do you keep it separate along the process?
Your solid conductor wire goes in together. So anything from to, RW90 single gauge.
Okay.
Solid copper goes one, stranded copper goes same machine, but different setting. And then your data Cat5, Cat6 goes into a different setting, and it gets it out too. The recovery rate on, data wire is actually quite high. It's a lot higher than most people believe.
I'm having a tough time picturing the plastic leaving and a conveyor coming out with just copper wire. So it's pretty effective?
It is. Yeah. You're about 45% recovery rate on an average.
Wow.
Depending on which gauge it is, of course, right? But yeah, it's getting higher and it's more valuable. Like we can't separate it more, but it's actually pure copper, whereas your other wire is not.
Oh, okay. So our other conductors are part of some sort of alloy?
That's right. It's majority copper, but
sure.
I don't know what the exact percentage is offhand, but your data is like 99.9% copper.
Okay.
What happens with the insulation afterwards?
A lot of the insulation, unfortunately, in Canada is landfilled. there's not much options here. There are some machines, but unfortunately, there's nobody who wants to take it.
Mm-hmm.
The manufacturers of the wire will not tell the recyclers what's in their plastic.
Okay.
So every plastic has got different mixtures for their, I don't know what to call it, their secret recipes, so to speak, or whatever it is. So we can't separate the plastic if we don't know what it is. You can't analyze each 1-inch piece.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting. I know it comes down to like those plastic clamshells almost too, right? We hear about in the blue bin
Yeah.
recycling around town as they can't actually be recycled because nobody wants them. So
In Europe, they've been recycling it for years and years, but with our regulations in Canada and in the States, there's not a lot we can do at this time yet.
mm-hmm. And do you think change is coming?
Eventually, yes. Probably not. I won't see it.
Okay.
It's a long ways away, but it will happen. It'll have to happen eventually.
Yeah, it's sometimes such a slow moving industry, but also can be such a fast moving industry at the same time, right?
Plastics is a very tough recycling industry. As you've seen, this city has had many issues with that too. It's almost cheaper to buy and make new plastic than it is to recycle old plastic. So until the government mandates recyclable manufacturers using recycled plastic, it's not going to happen.
We focused on conductors for recycling aluminum and copper and data and power. You guys can also recycle my conduit, my struts, my cable tray. Is that something you guys do?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
And another question is kind of right off the board here, so we can use it or not. Where do railways and utilities, how do they recycle their products?
So they put it on what's like a government auction site, so to speak. And 3 or 4 times a year, they'll reach out to the large steel recyclers and they'll bid on that. And then they recycle that.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, yeah, on a huge scale, yeah, there must be a process for that, absolutely.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 yards in Canada that are capable of handling CP Rail's equipment and large scale, railroad ties, so to speak. Not many will be able to handle that.
I'm gonna guess that's gonna be like on the West Coast or near the, I don't know, the route out either on the east or on the St. Lawrence Seaway down east, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That sounds heavy for sure.
Yeah, that's very heavy stuff. And another one too, where the police actually managed to catch a lot of people, is all that material with railroad ties is federally owned. So when people bring that into a yard, that's not just a provincial crime, that's a federal crime. So that is a big one when they get caught. They're going away for a very long time.
Dang.
Yeah, well, a railway line, I mean, those lines are heavy, so maybe that's the deterrent for people, and the federal penalties as well.
Yeah. The penalties are just not stiff enough for the people who are committing these crimes. And they say that about all crimes, they're not stiff enough. But we've talked to police in the past, and they're like, it's just not worth our time to do it because they're out tomorrow. So there's just no real hand slap, so to speak.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for sure for everyone involved. Like you said too, you're following the rules, trying to make it legitimate, and then the person that you're turning down or worse is coming back and vandalizing your property.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the public's over the last few years' answer is to shut down the recycle yards. Well, unfortunately, there's not enough copper and metals in this world if they shut down the recycle yards to function. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to blame the yards for doing this, but they have to figure out a way to catch these and punish these individuals a lot harder so that maybe this will slow down or stop.
Well, that's a really good point because yeah, we do have a finite amount of copper, right?
Yeah.
They've projected, right, the end of copper, and then yeah, this recycling will be mandatory.
Yeah, it'll have to be mandatory. But you look online, like when they were talking about the converter thing as an example, well, the public outcry is to close the recyclers. Well, we need that metal to function. If we want to have these cars and burning our fossil fuels, we need it. So when we run out of it and no one can drive their car, what are we going to do then? Or no one can fly in a plane, what are we going to do then? You know?
Yeah,
I understand where you're coming from, but there's got to be another line somewhere.
it's a silly solution to shut down the whole thing for the 1 or 2% of bad apples that are taking advantage of what's intended to be a good system.
That's right. Yeah, I will give the police kudos to it. They've done a really good job cleaning up the system, but their idea is punishing the yards. And yes, some of the yards, they'll take that risk because they've got the money to pay their fines. But they need to come down on a way to punish the people who are actually doing these crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's where we get back to like your business model and how you said that you want to be working with the tradespeople.
Yes.
And so if you can run a business by just recycling with the tradespeople, I mean, obviously you've demonstrated that after decades of being in business. I mean, that's one avenue you can go. Other recyclers can get their materials from someone else.
That's right. Yeah.
I guess kind of as we're wrapping up here, Zach, is there anything else we want to talk about?
Yeah. We've mentioned it, I mean, little bits throughout the show, but can you just like tell us about Bearwire? Tell us what services you can offer to anyone, electricians and beyond. What do you guys do?
Bearwire specializes in copper and metal recycling for the trade industry. We offer a pickup service with our vans. We offer job site cleanups with the roll-off dumpsters. We are here 7 days a week and holidays for the trades and public to bring in their materials for recycling. We play the market based every day on the commodity of where it's going. We don't play the game of this person, we're going to pay you that much. This person, we're going to pay you that much. It's straightforward, honest pay. All our prices are posted in our main office. So anyone can walk in and look at it and they know exactly what they're going to get. It's no hidden games. It's not, oh, you bring in 1 pound, you're getting this. You bring in 100 pounds, you're getting this. It's straightforward, honest market trading. If we show our transparency to our customers use us because there's no theft. There's no risk of being ripped off. All our scales are certified by the government regularly, which is another one that they're not implementing as much. Scales have to be certified when you're buying non-ferrous materials. They do regulate that, but it's not pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Some yards decide to regulate regularly, some decide not to. But for us, it's just transparency and education. If we can educate you on how to get more money off your material, then we're going to get more customer and we're going to make more money. If the material comes in sorted where you're going to make more money, we don't have to sort it and then lose money sorting it. Mm-hmm. So if there's any questions, ask, come in, say, what about this? How do I do this? How do I do this? All the gentlemen that we have on the scale are trained to show you the best way to get the best bang for your buck.
Can you give me a quick rundown of what bins I would need on a standard commercial construction site? How should I sort my copper?
So your copper should be sorted by conductor. Basically, your wire that's got 1 layer of plastic and 1 layer of copper should be in one bucket. If you've got multiple, like Lumesk, an example, it should be in its own container. Your data should be in its own container. It's all about thickness of the copper.
Okay.
Right. So the recovery rate. So 1 strand, 1 plastic, higher value.
Okay.
That's the simplest way to do it. I mean, there are a few different ones like tech cable. Well, they've got an extra layer of plastic, so it's got a little bit less value. versus BX.
Okay. Interesting. And then I have seen, and one thing that came up from our Instagram audience is that you guys have a phone app.
Absolutely. We have a phone app. Yes. Any of our customers can log in and earn what we call bear bucks. So every time you bring in a load of material, a percentage of your load goes into a cash bank. It's not a point system. It's not anything like that. When you're ready, you can just bank it up. When you're ready, you come in, you cash it out, and it's free cash.
Cool.
So the other one too is when you're on the app, you get access to our prices 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when we change it in the system, it changes it immediately on the app. So you could be sitting at home on a Saturday night. Oh, what's copper at? And you click on it and it'll tell you exactly what you're going to get that day.
Well, I like that you're taking a business, I guess, that could be ran pretty old school and you're trying to, nudge it forward a little bit. And also love that you focus on the trades, right? That's what we're here for, of course, is giving back to the electrical community. So it's all good stuff.
The biggest reason why I did the app with the prices is that people were tired of calling around every single yard to see who's paying the most. So just looking on the app, you know exactly what it is. You don't have to pick up the phone. I mean, you can. We'll always answer. You don't have to pick up the phone and call. You can just look at it whenever you're ready to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It also shows all the other materials that you can be buying, like, your emergency light batteries for your emergency lights. Those are all that valuable. Those little ones, right? So there's a lot of materials on electricians' job sites that are valuable for scrap rather than going into the garbage.
Anything else you got, Brandon, that you want to talk about that we didn't ask about?
The only other thing that I could recommend for your industry is to don't advertise your material.
Okay.
That's the number one way to keep your material safe. Don't leave C-cans open. Don't advertise. Unfortunately, putting company logos on your C-cans is a magnet. Mm-hmm. I understand why we do advertising. You want to advertise your business, but keeping your profile low when you're on job sites or vulnerable job sites, so to speak. And don't leave your scrap laying around. Get it out of there right away. Bring it in right away. Call us to pick it up right away, whatever the scenario is. And your theft on your scrap and your inventory, so to speak, will drop.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, it's it's sometimes advertising can kick you in the butt, I guess, too. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah, that's probably the number one way to help minimize your theft on theirs. Unfortunately, don't put your company logo on the bin that's holding all of your inventory.
Mm-hmm. Just put the drywall company's name on the bin.
That's right. Put the garbage company or whatever, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know about drywall. I live next to the Echo Waste and Recycling down in the southeast, and they always take drywall. Is there like money in drywall, or are they just grinding up the gypsum and rebuilding new drywall?
There actually is money in there. They're turning it. I don't know exactly what they're turning it into. Not drywall again. It's the. I know they use like asphalt shingles. Example, they have a recycling facility there. They turn it for asphalt for your roads.
Okay.
Right. The drywall is kind of a tough one that kind of got stopped a few years ago, but they're still stockpiling it. Absolutely. I live down in that area too.
Okay. Yeah. They're doing like an interesting thing there at that dump. Like the dump's almost full. So they're going to build like the recycling plant there. And they say they can actually turn the clamshells into something that people want to buy.
Yeah. And they're doing that with wood, as an example.
Yeah.
A lot of chips that you buy at Home Depot or wherever is coming from there.
That's cool.
Yeah, from their wood pallets and construction 2x4s and stuff. So what they've done in the last 5-10 years is pretty impressive. They got a long ways to go, but
it's an interesting concept with the dump to, instead of just, make a big hill, put a grass on it, is to actually now dig it down and reclaim everything in there now that the technology's advanced so much, right?
Yeah. Recycling is an industry worth seeking. Unfortunately, in Canada, we're really far behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, these things will all become more important in the future. Supply and demand, right?
Exactly, yeah. But if people are ever unsure of what they have, it's really stop in, grab a coffee, ask some questions. But we're here to educate. The more we can educate, the more profitable, the more better our business gets.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. If people do want to find out more, do you have a website? Where should people go to get in touch?
Yeah, so our website is bearwirerecycling.ca. Our Facebook page has also got a little bit of information on the recycling industry, but your key for information is come on in, check it out. You know, even if you don't bring anything, just stop in, grab a coffee, chat, ask the guys, ask yourself, anything. There's a lot of materials on that can be recycled that are not on job sites.
Yeah, you've listed dozens of things that I never knew
Yeah.
could be recycled in the last hour.
Even
So
fluorescent ballasts are recyclable. You know, the old 80s, 90s ballasts for your light fixtures are all recyclable.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of materials. You know, your breaker boxes, your bus bar, all of that, even your old cabinets, they're all recyclable materials. And with the cost of the landfill over $130, $140 a ton, it's worth the question, right?
what about fluorescent tubes, like the lamps?
The only one in the city that does the tubes, we actually used to do that years ago, but the city didn't like that. Eco Wholesale does fluorescent tubes.
Okay.
But they are expensive.
To recycle.
Yes. Yeah. But there's nobody more that will do it. The government has squashed that. We actually had all the equipment to do all that. They're worried about the contamination because there are some hazardous materials in those fluorescents, not the modern ones, but the older ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So insurance doesn't like that.
No,
Absolutely. Okay. I think we've got everything here, Brandon. I'm really we've had a great conversation here. You totally chilled out now. You realize, hey, we're just talking, right? So we just want to talk to people in the industry and learn a little bit more and help everyone learn so we can all succeed together.
Absolutely. Like I said, anytime, just give a call, question, ask. What's that saying? You don't learn unless you ask.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate the time, and you have an awesome day, and I guess keep on recycling copper for us because we appreciate it.
Sounds good. Anytime.
Well, with all that, I can say I learned a lot today. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode, and all of our listeners. You know where to find us at What's the Word Podcast, Instagram, Facebook. Keep in touch. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next one. I mean, you'll hear us on the next one.